Our focus for today is word problems. So taking everything we've learned about proportions so far, and what we've talked about is I've given you proportions and you've just solved them. Now we're shifting gears and looking at different types of situations or word problems where it is a proportion word problem where you have to set up the proportion yourself and then go and solve it. Okay, so we're going to look at 3 together, and then I'm going to give you whatever time's left to start your homework for practice. So this one, first one says, Julia is planning to serve hors d'oeuvres at her wedding. If you're not sure what that goofy looking word hors d'oeuvres means, it's a fancy word for like appetizers. So if you've ever been to a wedding or like maybe a fancy event, a lot of times in between like the wedding ceremony and dinner, they'll have waiters or waitresses come around with little like finger foods or little appetizers. Those are hors d'oeuvres. Okay. She plans on offering 8 hors d'oeuvres for every 3 people. If she has 240 people RSVP to the wedding, then how many hors d'oeuvres will she serve? So the first thing that you should be thinking about whenever you read any word problem, whether it's for proportions or fractions or decimals or whatever, is what information is given to me in the problem that I'm going to need to use. So what do I know in this problem that I need? Haley? Yep, so the first thing is that there are 240 people at the wedding. What other piece of information do I know that I'm going to need to use? Ellie?
She's serving 8 hors d'oeuvres for every 3 people.
Good, 8 hors d'oeuvres for every 3 people. And I'm going to abbreviate here hors d'oeuvres as HD. And then that slash mark, anytime we use the slash mark in math, it really means per. So 8 hors d'oeuvres for 3 people or per 3 people. What is it that I need to know? And for this problem, if you don't want to write this one down and you just want to follow along, that's fine. I'm going to have you write the other couple down, okay? But what is it in this problem that it's asking me to solve? Bless you. What am I trying to figure out? How many what? Look at the question. Haley?
How many hors d'oeuvres will she serve?
Yeah, how many hors d'oeuvres will she serve? So we're trying to figure out, in this wedding of 240 people, how many hors d'oeuvres does she need? This piece, the what I need to know, is what becomes my variable in the problem, my letter, my missing piece. So I'm going to say, maybe I'll plug in an H there and make that H. Now I'm going to set up my proportion. The very first thing when I'm setting up a proportion is I should set up labels for that proportion. So I need to think to myself, what are the 2 things that are being compared in this problem? So not the numbers, but what do the numbers represent? So like, I'll give you an example. If I said that the boy to girl ratio is 7 to 8 in this class, I don't know, I made that up. The 2 things being compared are boys and girls. So what are the labels in this problem? Ellie?
Hors d'oeuvres and people?
Yep. So the first thing I'm going to do is just write that as the kind of header for my proportion. Now, every year I have people who say, do I have to write the labels? Can I just skip that step? I will be brutally honest with you. Every year when I teach proportions, the people who typically have the lowest scores on the summative are the people who try to shortcut and not put this here. The reason we set our labels up is because now that my labels are set, when I go to write my proportion, any number that's an hors d'oeuvre number is going to go in the top row, and any number that's a people number goes on the bottom row. It helps me keep things lined up. I could have also set up my labels so that people were on top and hors d'oeuvres were on the bottom. It doesn't matter where I put those labels, as long as once I have those labels, everything's lined up. Okay, you with me so far? All right, so what is the first then hors d'oeuvre to people ratio? What's the given how many hors d'oeuvres for how many people ratio in the problem? Look back at what we know. What's the given hors d'oeuvre to people ratio? Evelyn.
8 hors d'oeuvres to 3.
Good. So the first part of my proportion is 8 to 3. 8 hors d'oeuvres for 3 people. And then I'm setting up a proportion, so I'm going to say that equals, that other piece of information I had was that number 240. Scarlett, based on where I have my labels, where do you think we're going to put the 240? The top or the bottom?
Bottom.
Why?
Because that's how many people.
Good. So see how easy it is once I have my labels there? Oh, it's 240 people. I put people on the bottom, so 240 goes on the bottom. And I'm also trying to find the number of hors d'oeuvres. That's my variable. Well, hors d'oeuvres is on the top, so my variable is going to go on the top. So now what we've created is a proportion, which is exactly what we've been solving. All we're going to do is solve this with our cross products, which is what we've been working on all week. So we're going to say that 3 times h, or 3h, is equal to what? What should be on the other side there? What? Yep. 8 times 240. Use your calculator and get me a number for 8 times 240. Reese, what'd you get?
1,920.
1,920. So we have 3h equals 1,920. And now remember our last step for cross products, we're just going to divide by whatever number, bless you, was being multiplied by the variable. So 1,920 divided by 3 is going to give me my final answer. 1,920 divided by 3, Scarlett?
640.
640 hors d'oeuvres. Very good. And I'm going to get in the habit of labeling hors d'oeuvres. That is a lot of hors d'oeuvres, but that's also a pretty big wedding, right? 240 people is a lot. It's a lot. Millie? All right. This one I do want you to write down and follow along with me if you didn't write the first one down. So we're going to walk through this one together. It says in class 1, there are 9 girls out of 15 students. 9 girls out of 15 students. If this stayed consistent, how many girls would you expect we have in the 6th grade class of 75 students? So thinking about what we know, 9 girls for 15 students, we want to know how many girls there will be with 75 students. The very first thing that everyone needs to do is write out the labels. So what are the 2 things being compared here? Don't give me numbers, give me objects. What are the 2 objects being compared? Ellie?
Girls and students.
Good. So the first thing you're writing down is girls to students. We're looking at a girls to students ratio. Again, you could write it as students to girls. If you wanted to put students on top, that's fine. It doesn't really matter where you put those labels. Okay, now who can give me the first girls to student ratio, the given ratio? Scarlett.
9 to 15.
9 to 15. 9 girls for every 15 students. And then I need somebody to go back and look. What's the last number it gives us, and where do we think it should go? The top or the bottom? Take a look at the problem. What's the last number given, and where should it go? Top or bottom? Emmett?
Bottom.
And what is the number?
75.
Yep, and why did you pick the bottom?
Because students is on the bottom.
Very good. So it's 75 students. We picked to put the label students on the bottom, so that's why Emmett chose to put 75 on the bottom. And then on the top, we're just going to pick a variable. I picked X. You might put G. Some people said I don't like using G because my G's kind of look like 9s and then I get confused. You might pick C because it reminds you of cookies and you like cookies. I don't care. Pick a letter. All right. So then we're going to use cross products to solve. Go ahead and do this on your paper alongside me. So we're going to say that 15 times X is on one side.
75 times 9.
Good. 75 times 9 is on the other side. I'm going to give you a minute to use your calculator and finish this one and see if you can get a final answer here. Your final answer should be less than 75 because there's only 75 students. All right, when you solved this, excellent. Yep, nice job. All right, I'm seeing on a lot of papers 15x equals 675, and then final step is to divide by 15, giving us x equals 45 should have been your final answer. What you should get in the habit of doing then, once you get that answer, what does the 45 stand for? So put that label on your answer, 45 girls. All right, we've got one more to do together, and then you're going to start your homework. Last one. Wait, what? The 6th grade generates 120 pounds of trash every 5 weeks. At this rate, how many pounds of trash would they generate in 7 weeks? What are the 2 labels that are being compared here? Ellie.
The pounds of trash and then the weeks.
Good, so I'm going to set up trash and weeks. You might choose to label it as pounds and weeks. You might choose to label it as pounds of trash and weeks. Okay, the labels are there for your reference, so label it what you need to. Okay, What is the given, the first pounds to weeks ratio? Pounds to weeks ratio. Take a look at it. Jack, what do you think?
120 to 5.
Good. What it told us is 120 pounds of trash every 5 weeks. So 120 to 5 equals, who can find the other number we need and tell us where it's going to go? The other number and where it's going to go. Gabriella, try. What's the other number? 7. And where does it go? Top or bottom? Why bottom?
Because it's the last number.
Ooh. You're right that it goes in the bottom, but it's not because it's the last number. Reese?
Because it's weeks.
Yeah, because it's 7 weeks, and if we look back to our labels, weeks is on the bottom, so we need to put that in the bottom. Okay? Then we're just going to pick a variable for the top. I might say T. You might say X. You might say Q. You might say C or A. All right, finish this one off on your paper. I'll put the answers up here so you can compare when you're done. When you're done, you should be comparing your work to what I have in blue up on the board, and it should match if you did the process right.